Hi, I'm Andre The Beast Crayton, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is an exciting show. I'm going to think how I should introduce this young man. The awards are endless, so I would start out like this. MVP, Super Bowl champion, collegiate champion, family man, entrepreneur, leader, mentor, the list goes on. I briefly met our guest yesterday. We connected through social media. Thank God for social media. And I am a big football fan, Dallas Cowboy fan, matter of fact. We won't go there today. But I was looking at this young man's bio and was really amazed. The show is about Beast's state of mind. And we all have it. We all venture into it, and we sometime along life's path drift out of it, and we try to find our way back into that state of mind. Today's guest has definitely endured different states of Beast's state of mind. He's overcome a lot of the downs, rejoiced over the highs, and praised the outcome. Today on my show, I have MVP, Super Bowl champion, leader of the community of Indianapolis, Indiana. Welcome, Mr. Gary Brackett. Gary, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, appreciate it, man. Great intro, man.
Only fitting. Gary, like I was saying, I read your bio, and believe me, I was deeply moved to the point that I was in tears. I share a lot of what your bio said. Take the viewers down a path of your childhood first and your family, and then we'll go into other segments of your life that kept you in the beast state of mind.
Right, yeah. So I grew up in Camden, New Jersey. So I don't know if you're familiar with New Jersey or Camden.
I heard of it.
Yeah, so Camden was awarded #1 worst city in America several times, right? So not a great place to grow up. But that's where I grew up, and kind of the hard knock streets of Camden. My mom and dad moved out of there when I was about 5, to Glassboro, New Jersey.
Okay.
So I had 3 older brothers and 1 younger sister. My father was a Marine, so retired military man, and my mom was a registered nurse.
Okay, hoo-ha.
Yeah, exactly, right? So for me, growing up, I had, that strict father that, taught me some discipline, on time is late, right? Make sure you take care of what you need to take care of. Then I had, my mom who was loving, a nurse, ordained reverend, so it was like this perfect balance. Having 3 older brothers was interesting because for me, I've always played up in competition. So even as a young kid, right, I always played against my brothers. I'm in 6th grade, they're in high school, right? And I'm on the basketball court, football field, playing against them and their friends, right? Because they needed an extra guy, and I was there. So, but what it did, though, was give me a huge advantage when I played against people my size, my age.
Okay, what do you mean by the advantage?
I wasn't afraid. I mean, you playing against kids in high school, you're in 6th grade, right?
Right.
It's something about being on the 6th grade playground, like, man, y'all can't touch me. I just tackled the dude that, the varsity running back.
Right.
So for me, it was always just interesting having that tight family community. Multiple sport athlete, played football, basketball, and baseball. All 3 of my siblings did. So, man, it was just always on the road, always at practice, just getting after it, as best I could.
Now, your father, Marine, very disciplined. Tell me a time that your father was really disciplined. I think it was a moment when you was playing football and you was trying to figure out what your father was thinking because you missed the tackle. Give me that.
Yeah, so there's the thing about my dad, right? And I think as we mature as men, you figure out different ways to show love.
Right.
And through our generations, right? So, when I grew up in the 80s, the 90s, it was tough love, right? Your dad wasn't going to like sugarcoat anything. He wasn't going to
straightforward do it.
And not only that, I think the way that my father showed love was through like holding me accountable. Or constructive criticism, if you will, right? So a game, I had 3 touchdowns, 15 tackles, right? So I come home like, yo, you see the stats, like, right? I beat like beast mode, right? I beasted out, and my dad was like, "Nah, you had 3 and 2." I'm like
keeping
what
the
you
records.
talking about? He's like, "Nah, you had 3 missed tackles and 2 fumbles." I was like, "All right, dude, like whatever."
Okay, yeah.
So, but it was interesting. So that later on that day, right? I'm just like, man, this dude, like, what? So when I hear him through the upstairs window, he outside on the phone bragging to his friend, like, "But my boy, they killing it." So it's that interesting thing, like. But now, as a man,
how did that make you feel knowing that he did that? Because clearly, I know where you're coming from. Because my dad showed that kind of love, and that's kind of like in our community. That's how we do. So when you heard your dad all of a sudden give you those praises, did that do anything to you as far as energizing, going, "Oh well, he's really paying attention"?
No, because it's funny because again, like. As a kid, I wasn't as mature as I am now, emotional IQ. So I'm like, why this dude playing mind games with me? Like, why can't he just give me some flowers, right? So I've always struggled, like, you know what I'm saying? This, like, he a hater, like, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't understand, like, no, he just wants me to be my best. He wants me to strive for greatness. And so I took it as like, man, this dude a hater. Like, you know what I'm saying? What can I do? But it's interesting now, with my kids, man, I'm way more... hey, what you think about the game, good, bad? What can we improve on? What do we do well? And just try to break down with them so they can see the good and the bad of each individual event.
So tell me about your mom.
Yeah, my mom, ordained Reverend, sweet lady, sacrifice. It's crazy when people always ask you like, who's your hero? Like, who's someone you look forward to? And it had to be my mom.
Right.
My father, because of being a Marine, suffered from PTSD. So he had post-traumatic stress syndrome. So that precluded him from being at a lot of our games, right? He didn't like being around a lot of people, didn't like being in crowds, loud noises. So my mom was the one. So, you scoring a touchdown, your mom, right there by the fence with the cowbell. Right? Or you going to a game, good game, bad game, she's always there for you. And she just had that ultimate faith, the ultimate belief in you. And she did not let you get down or stay down too long.
Was your parents harder on you? We'll talk about your brothers and sisters in a minute, but was your parents harder on you because you were the youngest?
So I was the youngest boy. I think I don't know if they were harder, right? So the oldest is probably harder on the oldest, trying to set the tone, and then at the 4th boy, it's just like, I got 3 kids, right? The first one's like, oh my gosh, you fell. Oh, let me rinse that off. The third one, you're like, all right, like 3-second rule, right? So I think it wasn't that it was hard. It was just like they've seen so many stuff with my older brothers. Right. So it was just like, look, all right, we already know the games, we know the tricks. So let us cut you off before you even get started.
Right. So you said your mom, she was kind of like the backbone. She now became your hero. It had to be difficult for your dad. So now you're transitioning from 2 parents coming to watch you play to, and really trying to understand exactly what your dad actually has. But I guess your mom was the comforter and said, okay, keep your dreams going. Let's keep going. And she became the role model. So tell me a little bit more about that, your hero.
Yeah, I think my mom would like give her last for it, and she did a lot of times, right? So I can remember vividly as we got older, right? I'm in high school now. My brothers are gone, but they live like around the corner across the street. So my mom will go out, it's 4 kids home, so she'd get 4 sandwiches, come home, and then the other 2 will be home. Right? So what you do as a mom, right? You give up your sandwich to other kids, right? And I can remember like hearing this sound. I didn't know what the hell it was, but it's my mom's stomach growling because she was hungry because she provided for the kids.
Wow.
And it's just like, as you get older, you recognize those sacrifices. And it really like, man, like, really makes you even more appreciative of how you grew up and what your parents actually sacrificed so you could, be able to live.
You were high school everything. I'm gonna call you Mr. Everything in sports. That's basically what we'll call you, Mr. Everything. But in your high school transition from, you really didn't get a lot of people looking at you because they judged you on stature, the appearance. You clearly proved the doubters wrong. When that came to your attention, how did they bring that to you that you're not the prototype, but you knew you were? So who was able to bring that to you, and then how did you go by addressing it to get the scouts to pay attention to you? On the college level, we on the college level from high school to college.
Yeah. So the crazy part, it never happened, right? So like, I had a lot of sharks against me, right? So small school, right? Group 1, Group 4 is the biggest school, so I was at the smaller school. My coach sent out my senior year high school film, like my senior year playoff tape to get me recruited.
Right.
So no one knew about me.
So you was in a division, I know I was in the 4A
right, so
division.
I'm in 1A.
You
so
in 1A, okay.
500 kids in my school, small school. And then I'm high school, 5'10", 210. So just like, is this dude a linebacker? Is he a safety? I'm not fast enough to be a safety. I'm not big enough to be a linebacker. So it was just one of those challenging things, right? But what, doesn't show up on a stat sheet or what doesn't show up on your height and weight is like your heart.
Right.
And your love of the game and your passion. And if you watch high school film, like my stats weren't like gaudy because we blew teams out. I mean, there was games like second quarter before we went to halftime. Like I got my shoulder pads off
because you guys already knew it was a blowout.
Because we're up 35-0.
Right.
So just like I never had the ridiculous stats, right? Because we would dominate our competition. So that was always a challenge trying to get recognized, but walked on to college. So didn't have an scholarship offer to go to college. I had to walk on to Rutgers University.
Which college? Rutgers?
Yeah, so Rutgers University is in New Jersey. At the time, they were playing in the Big East Conference. Okay. So Miami, back in their heyday. But
all about the U, baby.
Yeah. Virginia Tech, was it Mike Vick, so even Boston College, right, was a powerhouse. So we played against some really great competition, man. But yeah, I went there as like a recruited walk-on, so the coaches know about me. But yeah, I had to kind of earn my way to kind of get a scholarship.
Did you get the scholarship?
Crazy story, right? So my dad calls me, right, my second year in school, and he's like, hey, I got bad news. I was like, what's up? He was like, yo, your tuition bill came. I'm like, all right, like take care of it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm a kid. Like money grows on trees, right? Like y'all figure it out. He like, yo, we've refinanced our house twice. We don't have any more equity in our house. Like we can't afford your tuition. You have to come home.
Wow.
And I was like, dang. So I go to my position coach, like, hey, coach, I'm sorry, man. Thanks for the opportunity. I got to go home. He was like, home? He was like, you like second team backup? You starting special teams? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, I don't got a scholarship. He was like, what? There's 100 kids, so they don't know who got a scholarship. He doesn't, new coach. So he's like, let me talk to the
financial department?
No, financial and the head coach.
Okay.
And let me tell him. So he talks to the head coach. He's like, hey, no promises. Coach may or may not talk to you, whatever. So I'm like, hey, man. So I'm like, no promises. Like, I got my Honda Excel hatchback filled to the brim. I'm out of here. Like y'all got to, like, kick me when I'm down. So now he calls me like, hey, coach want to see you tomorrow morning. So I'm like, I got my car packed, right? It's a funny thing about that car, Honda Excel. I think it was like a 1989.
They don't break down,
bruh. 50 on the highway, that thing shook, right? So it's just like that's why my arms got so big. You know what I'm saying? But so I go inside the coach room, Coach Terry Shea, and I shake his hand. Hey man, thanks for the opportunity. He's like, yeah. He's like, so I heard you got to go home, huh? You don't got a scholarship. You can't afford tuition. I'm like, hey man, I can't, right? So he's like, I just want to tell you, man, we're gonna recruit players that are bigger and better than Gary Brackett. So I'm like, don't kick me when I'm down, like, yeah. Bro, like I get it, like I'm out, like. But he was like, and I was like, so I'm put off. So now I'm like to walk out, like, all right, bro, like I ain't trying to like hear this before I get out of here. But he's like, hey, wait. He's like, but you know what, man? He's like, you work hard. You're first in every one of our drills. You give me everything you got. And honestly, I wish I had 53 Gary Brackets.
Wow.
Like a kid just dropped out of school because of grades. We got an open scholarship. I'm going to give it to you. You got a scholarship.
Wow. That had to like really set your mind at ease.
So I'm crying, right? Emotional, give him a hug. He's like, yo, like, he don't know what it meant, right? So So this next moment changed my life. So I go in the locker room. And my buddies was like, yo, what you in here for? Like, I'm dressed to work out. They're like, I thought you was going. I was like, yo, I got a scholarship. So we clowning, like we happy, right? So I never forget, this dude comes to me, Wesley Robinson, right? 6'3", about 245, 5% body fat. So he come over there like,
he buffed.
So he, yo, what's going on? I'm like, hey, I get a scholarship, man. I get to stay. And he looked at me, and then it changed my life. He said, scholarship? You should worry about starting. Then he walks away. I'm like, starting,
right,
bruh? I just wanted a meal plan.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You talk about starting. Like, I was the kid waiting in line for you to swipe me in so I could go eat. You know what I'm saying? I had 40 meals on so I'm like, bro, I can eat. Like, what are you talking about starting?
Yeah.
So, but that night, right, I go home and that keeps on playing in my head. Like, man, you should worry about starting. I'm trying to go to sleep. You should worry about starting. I'm just like, so then like you make a deal with yourself. Like, so you ask yourself the question, like, what would it take for me to start?
So now you're playing with the devil,
right? So now you're like, yo, you gotta start waking up earlier. You gotta stop eating bad food. Stop putting junk in your body, right? You gotta stop drinking so much. You gotta watch film. You gotta be dedicated in the weight room. So you get this list of all these things you gotta do, right? And then it's just like, you know what? I'm gonna commit to this list.
So before the list even came out, before the guy approached you, the coach recognized your abilities.
Yeah.
So did the thought of ever starting even hit your mind, or was it more, you was more academically driven than you were sports driven? I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
No. So the thing is, right, so I was always athletic, right?
Right.
But I wasn't disciplined.
Okay.
So, you know what I'm saying? I was at the time 245, right? I played in the NFL 225.
Okay.
So I'm fat, out of shape, right? And I wouldn't get a lot of playing time. So when I was getting there, I always thought I got to hit a home run. So I'd be guessing, you know what I'm saying, not doing what the play calls me to do. So while I was talented, while I was strong, while I was fast, quick, like I never had an opportunity to really lock in and stay focused and stay disciplined to get it. So they recognized it in me, right? I was starting special teams, I was a backup, but they couldn't trust me.
Right. Okay.
So doing all those things that I made on that list gave them the ability to trust me, which then gave me the ability to be the starter. So
what he said really impacted you.
I mean, changed my life. And it's this poem called The Meano's Higher. And it was like, I work for a penny, like owning it alone dismayed. Like, so it's this guy who talks about he worked in the store for a price, right? And the thing of it is, we all have this option to ask life for what we want.
Right.
And then life's going to say, all right, this is what you want. This is what I need from you.
Right.
And then we got to make an agreement whether or not we want to give, you know what I'm saying, make that sacrifice.
And a lot of people today really don't make those sacrifices. They don't put down those things. But at a young age, I guess you was probably like 19.
Yeah.
You know, that took a man step to say, let me sit back and really put down my weaknesses. Mm-hmm. What do I need to do to get to that level? So when you start putting these things into play, how did your life begin to change?
You know, it's crazy. So now I believe life now is like these 7 pillars in your life, right? You got self-development, you got career, you got fitness and health, financials, like your home life. So when you become disciplined, especially, right, and I'm talking to a guy who's done it on a professional level, but when you're disciplined in your fitness and health area, when you're disciplined in what you eat, how you sleep, how you take care of your body, it affects every other area of your life.
Yeah, that's true.
So for me, you have better relationships now, right? For me, your spirituality is cleansed, right? Because I'm not eating junk food, I'm not drinking, I'm not crazy. Financially, I'm not spending that money. So when you really affect and control your fitness and health, it affects every other area of your life.
You know, we're going to talk about those pillars a little later in the podcast, because remember, fans, I want you to pay close attention to these pillars because we're going to emphasize that later. So let's keep moving forward. Throughout the college transition, you also went through some hard times with the loss of your mom and your dad during your college.
Yeah, I was actually in the NFL. So,
you was in the NFL?
So I lost my best friend. I lost my best friend in college.
Okay, tell me about that.
Yeah, so I obviously very talented, did not go to college, got caught up in the street life, and one night he got murdered. So I was a senior at the time, junior actually, and I had to go home and be a pallbearer. And it just really tells you in life, man, the choices you can make. Because I was thinking about not going to college, doing the same thing, right? So for me, it just really just puts into perspective a few things. One, how valuable life is. Mm-hmm. And secondly, how valuable your choices are.
It's funny because I don't know if people heard what you just said. You almost went down that path.
Yeah.
What was the transition that made you decide not to go down that path?
So for me, and this is a challenge that, a lot of us face depending on where you're at, especially African-American men, is that growing up, a lot of times you don't have positive role models.
100% true.
So, and not that my mom wasn't a role model, but I don't want to be an ordained reverend. I don't want to be a nurse. So it wasn't like something I want to, emulate.
Right.
So a lot of times the challenge becomes like, how do you model yourself off of something that you don't know exists?
Right.
So for me, what was stronger than modeling myself after someone was not modeling myself after someone. So seeing the worst, right? We lived across the street from the projects.
Right.
So I've seen criminals, I've seen crime, I've seen violence, and I was just like, man, I want to be a part of this. Right. I had a strong desire to remove myself from that situation, and that strong desire is why I decided to go to college and get an education and try to get out of there.
Did you have survival remorse with your friend, because he was your friend? Did you wish that maybe you could have? We all have done that. I know you probably sat back and said, "Damn, I wish I could have done something," but I guess you did do something. I'm pretty sure your friend is like, "Wow, you changed your life," because you could have been in the ground next to him. So
I have this saying that I really believe on, and obviously we're gonna touch on my family next, but my belief is that the way you honor the dead is how you live your life.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right, the best honor that I could give someone that's not here anymore is going out there being an inspiration, going out there being a leader, going out there being a mentor, right? Mm-hmm. Giving back to people. That's the best way I can honor you. Like I can't honor you by being at your gravesite, by being depressed, by, not living up to my potential. That's not honoring you.
Right.
But by living my life to my fullest, I'm giving you the best kind of honor.
You mentioned role models, and I'm African-American man, and we're not just saying this happens with just African-American men, but it happens a little bit more. We always looking for, and I know myself from my own personal journey, sports was a way out. Mm-hmm. There wasn't role models. I believe my first role model was my coach, and I remember going in my first year in high school, and they had track and field, and I'm from Georgia,
right?
And to go to Pepsi-Cola, Florida was big. It was the Pepsi-Cola relays in Tallahassee, and I remember him saying, "We're only taking 15." And this was my first year, and I said, I can't. And I remember Coach Hugh Hicks, played for the Dallas Cowboys and the Kansas City Chiefs. He looked at me and he said, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go home and look that word up and come back tomorrow and tell me what it meant. And I looked and I said, Coach, I said, I couldn't find a word. He said, they never use it. And I said, wow. And that was like a life-changing moment in my life. And I said, I'm never going to use that word again. I'm going to try to find a way to make things happen. But with that said, looking for a role model, back to your family. You lost your father. He was a male role model to you. Mm-hmm. Who stepped up? Not even stepped up. Let me rephrase it. When you lost your role model, because that was the mentor outside of your brothers and your immediate family. Who was the person that came and you kind of mentored and was like you gravitated to him?
You know what's crazy? So my first year in the NFL, week 8, I get a call that my father passed away. Right, so go home, bury my father during the off season. 6 months later, I lose my mom, and then a year later, I lose my brother to cancer. So 18-month span, I lost my mom, my brother, and my father. So at the time, the linebacker crew was me, Cato June, and David Thornton. And we was as thick as thieves. And so many times, mentors people are looking like, yo, their mentor is someone older, right? But so many times our friends can be mentors to us.
Right.
And what I've learned through that time was like, man, how a friend comes through in a situation when you need them.
Right.
Because so many times I think the misconception is like, yo, you're going through something, so now I'm going to tell you, yo, Andre, yo, you're going through it, but hey, if you need me, I'm here for you.
Right.
And they put the burden on you, right? But you're going through something.
Right.
The last thing you want to do
is carry that.
Or risk rejection.
Right.
Right? I'm going through something. I'm already at my lowest.
Right.
I'm going to ask you for something. You reject me, bro.
You may not even.
That might be it.
Yeah.
So what my friends did, man, they didn't wait for me to ask.
It was proactive.
Hey, come get your ass out the house. Hey, we going to Bible study. Hey, we going to dinner. Hey, we're like, nah, I'm coming. I don't want to drive. I'll pick you up.
Right.
So I think true friends really don't wait for the ask. And I think that really taught me so much, man, about mentorship, about your friends, your dogs being there, right? So, it's, the whole thing, New Jack City, CMB, right? Cash Money Brothers, right? We all we got.
Right.
And that's the type of bonds and relationships that I formed. That's why, you look at these NFL players, just football players in general, like, man, what's the stronghold? Why are these dudes so, like, affected by this locker room? And it's those type of relationships that you don't get anywhere else.
Right. With the loss of your parents, let's take people down a little bit because they need to understand what the life is like for an NFL player. And a lot of people think that it's roses. Everybody's not making Tom Brady money.
Right.
You came on pretty much as a walk-on.
Right.
Your job wasn't guaranteed, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you wasn't even signed yet while this turmoil was going down.
It was my first year, rookie contract. My signing bonus was $2,000, right? So free agent signing bonus was $2,000. So like I spent, like a bunch of money because I had to go home, I had to rent a car, so I got here and I got my check for $1,200, and I was like, yo, like, I got $2,000 where my money at. It was FICA, right? Taxes, SUDA, food. I'm like, they're like, yo, taxes. I'm like, what? So I'm in a hole day one in the NFL, right? So not only did I have millions, I'm negative in my bank account.
And people really don't understand that. A lot of NFL players, now it's changed. They have financial assistance and stuff, but when people look at it, they be like, man, that dude was balling. But a lot of NFL players start out in the negative for some reason, maybe mismanagement or the ability not to know what their money is, or maybe not even having an agent. Did you have an agent?
Yeah. I think they have agents, and I think, obviously some players spend money before the draft and then don't go as high. But I think now, one, they're getting paid a lot more money.
Yeah.
Right? I definitely was born in the wrong decade. But second, I think, they're being smarter. I think the internet, man, it just has so much information, and guys are learning from, some of the other guys' mistakes. But I think they're doing a better job of educating, better job being smarter. But the reality of the situation is the average NFL career is 2.5, 3 years.
Right. Well, look at Dak Prescott. I mean, people were like, okay, give him the money, don't give him the money. This guy just got hurt.
Yeah.
Done for the season. So, but not to focus on the money. So what I was going with that topic was people needed to understand that maybe you wasn't even signed yet, or you didn't have the mega money, but you're still trying to keep your family intact because, you have deaths in the family. You're going back and forth. That's a lot on your plate at the age of what, maybe 22, 23 years old?
23.
You now are a man.
So the crazy part about it, right, is that, NFL players, they're not born sophisticated into money. A lot of us don't come from families and situations where we're taught money, we're taught finances. So for us, we feel like there's so many people who got me here. It's our money.
Right.
Right. So for me, it's just like, I give my last. Like, my brother was dying of cancer. Like, I'd have emptied my bank account if I could have found a cure for him.
Right.
Right. I mean, I emptied my soul. Right. I gave him a bone marrow transplant. But just the type of dudes that we are. Right. Because for me, it's always more important than making the money was the person you become while you make it.
While you're making it. People don't understand this, too. During the time that your brother was going through this cancer, I guess people don't understand what a bone marrow transplant actually means for what you did for your brother. You had to literally get injected with a flu-like symptom.
Right.
Help assist your brother. Then on top of that, report to camp and be in condition to keep your job.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so second year in the NFL, we're going into training camp in May, right around my birthday. My brother, right, we grew up, we looked like twins, my Greg, which was great because he was 3 years older, right? So essentially when he turned 21, I turned 21, right? So that was great for me. I was in high school. So we went to go get the matches, right? I'm a perfect match for him. But the problem was he didn't have insurance, so it was all financial aid. They were playing around with him. So comes the May, he's dying in the hospital, and I get a call like, hey, he just got approved, your brother's dying. Like, we need you here on Monday to give him his bone marrow. And we had camp that weekend. So I had to go to Coach Dungy and talk to him like, hey, Coach, man, my brother is he's in the hospital dying of cancer. And Coach Dungy's father just died of cancer, so he was familiar. And he was always family first. What was great about Coach Dungy. And I was like, I got to go home and, give him a bone marrow transplant. He was like, man, the family's always comes first here. So that's what I did. So it's crazy because I went home, and a lot of people have this misunderstanding about bone marrow. I don't know the research, but I think it's a low percentage of the times like bone marrow actually is that long needle in your back to get the marrow. Mm-hmm. And that's what most people think when they think about a bone marrow transplant. Mm-hmm. For my transplant, it was being in a room, hooked up to a machine, and they took out the white cells. They took all the blood out, they extracted the white cells, right, and then they put the red cells back in my body. Well, in order to boost your white cells, right, they got like the best time your white cells are increased is when you're sick. Right. So they got to give you a Neupogen, it's called, and it's a shot that really just boosts your white cells. Pretty much injecting yourself with the flu. But the kicker was like, yo, at the time I'm 9-10% body mass. I'm 230 solid. They like, yo, you ain't no regular dude, so we got to give you like triple the amount in order that we can extract as many as we can. Yeah. So for that weekend, it was not a great weekend. But like, again, like, you know what I'm saying? If that's little in terms of sacrificing for the opportunity to save my brother.
That is a lot on your plate to be a young man. Mm-hmm. But let me go back a little bit more. Not only did you do that, but I'm going to go back one more notch here. Your mom, you did something. You had to make decisions that a person of your age, it had to be difficult. Right. To make the decision. Let the viewers know that.
Yeah, so again, first person in my family with a college degree. Now I'm in the NFL, right? So of course, like, my father's gone, so I'm like the head of the household, right? So my mom's in the hospital. She went in for a routine surgery, and she had a stroke on the recovery table. So now we're in the hospital, had to make some tough decisions about, what should happen. And my mom was a reverend, and she was bubbly, she was alive, and as the stroke progressed and got worse, her condition got worse. So her brain function was almost at like 5%, meaning that she'll be a vegetable for the rest of her life, right? So she's still alive because she's hooked up to the life machine. So I drive home, and I remember this episode of Seinfeld. I don't know if you watch Seinfeld.
I love Seinfeld. So, Kramer.
Yeah. So it's one episode where I think the father was in the hospital, right? And then every time he's hooked up to the machine, the wife comes in, and the machine goes off the hook, right? Yeah. So then she leaves, it comes back down, and then she comes back, and it goes off the hook again. So then he was like, yo, like, Mom, you killing Dad. Like, every time you come to the hospital, like, his level's off the hook. And then the father was like, nah, like, my heart still flutters and skips a beat every time I see your mom. Like, she's the love of my life. The whole thing, I can't live without her. And it just really made me think about my mom and my dad's relationship, right? They were together 20, 30 years. And it's one of those things, like, my mom lost her best friend when my father passed. So it was selfish for us to keep us here at 5% brain capacity, where she wanted to, go home and be with my father. And in addition to that, being a Christian, I just believed that if God was going to make a miracle, that he didn't need a life machine. Right. So the next day, I kind of went to the hospital. And I made the decision for the family to take my mom off the life support machine And if the miracle was going to happen, you know, God wouldn't need a machine. So unfortunately, it didn't happen. She went on to be with the Lord. But I think, you know, again, just perspective, man. And
why do you think your family put you in charge of that decision?
I think education, and I think, you know, I've always been a leader.
Okay.
And a part of being a leader is sometimes you got to make the unpopular decision.
Okay.
And as a leader, you have to be good with that.
Right.
And so many people aren't good with making that decision, right? So somebody, like my sister wouldn't want to make that decision. Some of my brothers didn't want to make that decision. Like, yo, who gonna think? And for me, it's just like how I make decisions. And that's why I was a captain. That's why people always respected me, because I look through the lens of what's best for the person making a decision for.
Okay.
So when I made a decision about my mom, it's what's best for my mom, not what's best for me. And so many people can't make a decision what's best for another person without leaving themselves out of the equation. Right? I'm gonna make a decision, but ultimately it's gonna be best for me.
Right.
Right. It's not gonna be what's best for you. It's gonna be what's best for me for you. And for me, to be always able to step outside myself and say, hey, what's best for her? And for me, it was an easy decision. So, you know, I had, you know, just solace knowing that, you know, I made the best decision. I was raised well. They instilled so many, you know, valuable, you know, values inside of me. And for me, you know, I felt like it was time for them, you know, to go and be without pain.
On a lighter note, and believe me, I feel your pain. When I read the bio, like I said, I was in tears, especially more so for the fact that you was a young man that had to step up. Mm-hmm. So on a lighter side, let's talk about the Gary Brackett of the NFL. You played with Peyton Manning. Mm-hmm. You played with some of the Marvin,
Reggie Wayne.
So tell me the good side about
Adrian James.
About playing. I love it.
Yeah, not facts.
So tell me what's that like playing with those guys. Let's talk to you about a lighter side of Gary.
Yeah, no, the crazy part, right? Man, Coach Shiano, that's my guy. He at Rutgers now. Tough loss yesterday, but he my first camp, I was kind of starstruck. Right, he was a young kid from Rutgers. We got spanked. Now you go in the league, you playing against like one of the best teams in the NFL. And man, you just so like caught up by, yo, that's Peyton Manning, that's Adrian James, that's Marvin Harrison. So I go home, like I'm making mistakes, right? Cause like, oh, that's Peyton, like, oh, that's Adrian. So then he was go home. I went home and I kind of told him that he was like, yo, when you go back, that's number 18, that's number 32, and that's number 88. They put their pants on one leg at a time like you, and when they bleed, it's red just like yours.
Right.
They're men. And that changed my life and changed my perspective of like when out there how I attack, right? So then it just became like a competition. Like you're competing against the best, and right, iron sharpens iron. So when we were out there, we're just getting after it, talking trash. But I think because we worked so hard in practice, the games became easy.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I noticed that year. That was the year. One year, you guys were playing against Pittsburgh for the Super Bowl.
We were playing against them in the
championship.
The AFC.
That was we should have went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so it's crazy, right? So I'm gonna have a famous play, right? They get the ball back. They're up 3-yard line. They give the ball to Jerome Bettis.
I remember.
And I pop it out and make him fumble, right?
Yeah.
So Nick Harper picks it up. Obviously, he zigs instead of zags. He gets tackled by Roethlisberger. And, but that was definitely our best team, our 2005 Colts team.
You became the MVP. What was that like?
Yeah, so I was always awarded MVP in college. Not necessarily the NFL. NFL, biggest honor was being named captain. And
really?
Yeah. So being named captain with Peyton Manning for several years throughout my career, and just being leader of an organization, really just first class organization. Jim Irsay, the Irsay family, Bill Polian, Hall of Fame, GM, Hall of Fame coach.
Right.
So I just honored and blessed to be around some great individuals with some great minds.
How did that make you feel when you became the captain?
Man, it was humbling. I think it was like unanimous, except for me. I think I'm the only one that didn't vote for myself, right? But I think it was that aha moment, right? Because right. I was a walk-on. I was a free agent, right? I wasn't used to like being on the pedestal. Like I was gonna do my job because that's what I would do. right? It wasn't because I got a title.
Right.
So for me, getting a title was like, wow, this is big.
You know, clearly your beast frame of mind has gone in and out, and now is still moving forward. Before we run out of time, tell me the things that you're doing now for the community. You an entrepreneur, you got restaurants in Indianapolis, you have foundations, and you also starting a new mentor program for individuals. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so unfortunately, this year has been challenging with COVID, right? So taught me some valuable lessons, and with the restaurant industry, it's very challenging making money when you're closed, right? And even more challenging when you're a sports bar and sports are cut off. So early in the year, I made this decision to pivot from the restaurant industry. It was like Monopoly, right? I don't know if you play Monopoly, right?
I love it.
All game long, you build your board up, and you spend all your money to acquire property, right? And then you got houses and hotels, and then only one card in the game can be detrimental, right?
Right.
And that card is, you got to pay taxes on each house in these. So that's how I felt, right? Getting the bag, and 10 stores not making money, no sports. So that cash drain was so significant, and running the numbers and looking at the financials, there wasn't one event that ever was going to occur to get back what I lost.
Right.
So then you start thinking about sunk costs and about money that was invested that was gone. And for me, realizing that the one thing that's not renewable is time.
Right.
So making a decision now, my time is better served, get into more of a role as a coach, a leader, a mentor, than struggling through these next restaurants, because unfortunately, we're just seeing the beginning of what's going to happen because of COVID. I mean, when all this money runs out and everything else, there's people hanging on. And for me, it was just let me retool, let me pivot. So now in this space doing business consulting, doing coaching, and just really helping businesses grow and scale in ways over the years, you learn techniques and tools that you didn't realize when you made decisions earlier, right?
Tell me about the tools and the pillars, because that's your new project with the new mentoring thing.
Right.
Tell the viewers about that protocol that you're doing now to help them get to the next level.
So GaryBrackett.com, right? So I've always been a speaker, right? And I've always termed myself a transformational speaker, not a motivational speaker. Right, okay. So my goal is not to motivate you, right? You have to motivate yourself. My goal is to transform you, and how you do that by giving them a set of tools, right? So understanding that goals are great, but systems are better, right? So if your goal is to lose weight, that's awesome. But if your system isn't eating clean, working out, exercising, you're never going to reach that goal, right? So understanding and teaching people the tools or how they could change their lives and how they could affect their business, you could really 2x, 3x, 4x someone's business just by changing their psychology. So really me coming up with programs, and the first one was Champions Academy. I believe that you could be a champion in every area of your life, right? So we talked about fitness and health, self-development, business and career, finances, spirituality, intimate relationships, and then social relationships. Okay. So many people sacrifice one for the other, right? You probably know a lot of people who have great businesses, but their family life is terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Or their family life is terrible.
But their business is good.
Right. So it's this thing of how do I really take an assessment of where I'm at in my life, and then how do I get better?
And you show people with your program how to do this.
Exactly. So I came up with this framework, right? It's called the CHAMP framework, right? CHAMP. So CHAMP framework is first we look at your current situation, right? Let's really assess currently where you are. And so many people lie to themselves, right? So my dad used to say, you lie to yourself, who can you trust? So your current situation isn't you with your shirt off. Isn't you with your shirt on in the mirror I'm good. Now, as you butt naked in front of a mirror, you're
let's see what needs to be done.
I need to work on that, right? So first you get this assessment, raw assessment of where you at. It's beautiful. Now, if you're going on a destination, what you need a map. So now that's honing on your desired destination. So now where do you want to go? Let's paint that out. No limitations. Don't put limitations on yourself on where you want to go. Where you want to go is where you want to go. It's okay to dream big. So many people think, well, I guess I kind of want to take vacations. I guess I want a 5-car.
So do you find people shortchange themselves?
All the time. All the time. People use other people's perceptions and other people's limited beliefs and fears and let them affect their lives. Okay. And are afraid to live their lives, right? People that I hang with, they're afraid to say, I want a multi-million-dollar business. Now, if I make $40,000 a year, I'm good. I'm like $40,000.
Right.
Now, if I make that one deal, I'm good. Right. So
Yeah.
just change your mind, right? And whatever you change your mind, you could do in reality. Okay. So next, after you hone on your desired destination, you apply the 80-20 principle.
And what's the 80-20?
My belief is that 20% of what we actually do result in 80% of our results.
Okay.
And so many people think in order to acquire success that they need to add additional tools, or really they need to addition by subtraction. They need to start doing some things. Right. So you probably work with people now and they train in fitness. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna take this program. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take that. Nah, all you gotta do is remove these things from your diet.
Right.
And exercise this much a week. That's it.
Why do you think that people, I'm glad you brought that up, why do you think people make it so difficult? Is because they allow the influences and to penetrate their mind and they can't get out of it?
I think people generally want a shortcut. And,
I'm glad you said that because I didn't want to say it.
Right. And the shortcut is doing the work.
Yeah.
There's no shortcut.
Okay.
Take the stairs, do the work, right? So then after you understand what's the 20% that gets you the results, then you take massive action.
Right.
Massive, consistent action, right? And so many people are afraid because they've been putting in work, they're not seeing the results because they're judging themselves based off someone else. Well, you're not running a race against anybody else, you're running a race against yourself. Are you better than you were yesterday? Are you in better shape? Are you 5 pounds lower, 1 pound? It doesn't matter. Are you better than what you were? If you are, great, congratulations, let's keep on moving.
So some people use the time factor because even as a trainer, and I'm pretty sure you get this with your program, they want to see instant gratification.
Doesn't work like that.
And I'm glad you said it doesn't work like that. Your program is proven information because you have used these tools in your own life.
Yeah, not only that. I mean, I'm helping clients see clarity, right? And the last P is that pursuit of transformation, right? You look at some of these LeBron James, Bill Gates, they're still pursuing life, not because they need any money, right? But they're pursuing and chasing their best selves. And I think our ultimate goal in life is to chase our best selves, right? Is to never settle.
Right.
And I think once we establish that framework, there's nothing that we can't overcome.
Gary, how do the people get to contact you to learn about these 7 steps, to learn more about you and having you impact their lives? Yeah,
so my website's right here, GaryBrackett.com. You could definitely hit me up on there. I'm on all social media channels like Gary Brackett. And like I said, it's a commitment, right? And it's an investment, right? I don't look at it as what it costs. It's what are you willing to invest in yourself? And when people look at, what they need to invest in themselves, the ultimate decision is, are you willing to commit? And if you want to commit, it doesn't matter what you invest because an investment is going to give you a return on your dollars.
Right. And
if that return is there, if you tell me, give me $1 million, I'm going to make you 2, right? I'm going to find a way to get you $1 million. So it just people reprogram their brain and really ask themselves, what are they willing to commit to? And when they make that commitment, man, their lives can change.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. MVP, Mr. Captain, Mr. Everything, my man, Gary Brackett. Gary, thanks for being on the show. Hey, we will have you back to talk about more of your program, the 7 steps. I encourage individuals to reach out to Gary. Right now, we need programs like what Gary is putting together. And the reason for that is because we need to learn how to rebrand ourselves. Not of color, not of race, but in general, we need to know how to rebrand ourselves. And clearly, this program is the tools, the pillars to getting you started. Start investing in yourself. Gary is definitely in the beast state of mind. He's moved himself in the beast state of mind. He's always been there. Gary, if you have one thing to tell to the viewers to keep them strong during this questionable time that we're dealing with, like to give a shout out to the election. I don't like to get political, but you know what? We need to give thanks that we've made history. We have the first African American female, long overdue. I call it like it is. It's long overdue. With that, Gary, what can you leave our viewers with to keep them strong during this questionable time that we're dealing with?
The one thing I will leave them with is this notion that success leaves clues. Right? Success leaves clues. Stop trying to do everything on your own. Stop trying to figure it out on yourself. right? People have been where you've been before. They have succeeded. They have won in life. And there's a blueprint on how you get that done. You do not need to recreate the wheel. There's a system that if you put in place will change your life.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the Andre The Beast Show. Gary, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks.
Tune in for another episode of the Andre The Beast Show.